So, recently I visited New Zealand and spent some time wandering the beaches of the country's third largest island, known as Stewart Island or Rakiura. Stewart Island is the southernmost of the permanently inhabited islands of New Zealand, and a place I've dreamed of visiting since childhood, because tiny remote islands have just always fascinated me. I'll be posting some more videos about my adventures in New Zealand, but today I want to focus on the walks I did along the shore of Stewart Island, looking for interesting marine life, including seashells, fish, shorebirds, and more. Although I'm calling this beachcombing, I decided not to collect anything just because I wasn't sure what the local rules were, and most of the island is under some form of conservation protection. However, I did see a lot of really beautiful and amazing things, so let's get right into it. So, I started my beachcombing journey by heading out from my hotel and walking to a place called Bathing Beach, which is a small inlet where a creek feeds into the sea. Now, I had spotted this place on Google Maps before I headed out, but Google Maps kind of listed it as an estuary or wetland, so I was actually planning on going along a little further to a different beach, but ended up stumbling upon this one. It had a lovely little trail leading down to it, so I decided to check it out. Another thing is that the weather was a little inclement that day, so the trail actually had a few trees on it, shielding me partially from the rain. It was intermittent rain that day, but still. That's why I chose this beach, kind of by random, but I'm very glad that I did. So, I walked along the creek for some time, trying to spot any fish in the water. There weren't any that I could see, however, the first thing I noticed about the beach was the consistency of the sand. I believe this is sand even Anakin Skywalker could appreciate. It felt more like walking on soft snow than beach sand, and picking it up, it had the feel and consistency of moon sand. The kids' plaything, not actual lunar soil. Across the creek, I did see a few ducks. I'm not sure if these were gray ducks or possibly just mallards. Sometimes ducks can be a little confusing, and I'm not super experienced with identifying certain New Zealand birds. Following the creek down to where it met the ocean, I actually came across my first seashell of the trip. A large, lovely snail, apparently known as the ostrich foot snail. Not sure why, it doesn't really look much to me like an ostrich foot, but maybe when it's alive, I don't know. I believe the ostrich foot snail is endemic to the waters around New Zealand, so that's pretty cool. I am a sucker for endemic species, especially island endemic species. I just really think island biogeography is the coolest thing, which is one of several reasons why I visited New Zealand in the first place. Walking out to the waves, I spotted my first proper shorebird of the walk, a variable oyster catcher. This was in its black phase, but sometimes they have a white patch across their front, hence the name. On the water's edge, I found some vibrantly pink New Zealand lamp shells. These chaps look like they should belong on some coral atoll, and not on this decidedly chilly inlet. But here they were. Same with the parakeets that were flying around overhead. Stewart Island really does give off tropical vibes, but you'll definitely need a warm coat and some decent rain gear to get around. It was raining pretty much every day that I was on Stewart Island, but I still had a great time. At this point, I headed across the beach and scrambled across some rocks that separated it from a slightly smaller inlet. This inlet ended in a stretch of rocky shoreline, which I figured would be a very nice place to stick my camera. So I made a beeline directly for it, hoping to examine this interesting intertidal habitat. I definitely saw a fish dart for cover as I peered over the edge of the rocks, although I didn't catch anything on my camera. However, I did get some very nice underwater views of the crystal clear inlet. I must say the water around this island is exceedingly clear, and I think that's down to the lack of agriculture and development on Stewart Island. There is hardly any pollution in the water at all. At this point, the tide seemed to be coming back in, so I decided to head back to avoid getting stuck on this second beach. On the way back, I spotted some beautiful small iridescent shells. They were definitely my favorite finds on this beach and are from a species known as the wheel shell. Apparently, the wheel shell is a filter feeding species of snail, which is definitely unusual. I have heard wheel shells often wash ashore after storms, which makes sense as it had been raining for the past week of my trip to New Zealand. These were a very special find, and after spotting one, I realized that the beach was actually covered in them. My next find was a deceased crab, a common find on many beaches the world over. At this point, the water started to turn, so quickly I ran for cover underneath the trees just beyond the beach. Well, anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this quick little adventure. I'll have some more New Zealand related videos coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed for those as well.